The journey is much more fulfilling when you take somebody with you, and the world is a much better place.
Hello, this is David Wofford, and welcome to Driven to Success. Today, we have a special guest, Vic Tarasik with Shop Owner Coach. Vic Tarasik, I've known Vic for a number of years, going all the way from a customer to a cohort. With that, I would like to introduce Vic. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, David. It's always good to be by your side.
I tell you what, between the two of us, we could always get in trouble. I know that much.
Yeah, I think our middle names are trouble.
Could be. Now, the best thing is, as long as you don't get caught, then you don't get in trouble.
This is true. There's plenty of things I've not gotten in trouble for. Let's say it like that.
There you go. There you go. So really what we're here today for is really to learn a little bit about your background and kind of your upbringing. How did Vic evolve into Vic, the shop owner coach of today? But we want to go way back to the beginning.
Right.
And so really what we're looking for is kind of, if you can kind of start us with your professional career, and that professional career could have been 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, but that's really up to you. Really, when did you get into, let's just say, a job? And then how did that kind of morph into your changes in your lifehood to bring you to Mr. Shop Owner Coach?
Wow. Thanks. And it's a lot to process initially. So I will tell you this. I've always been involved in loved cars. I kind of think it's genetic, and I think I would be doing everybody a disservice if I didn't talk about my really early days. So my dad was a lineman. He was really good with his hands. He was one of these guys. He did woodworking. He did mechanical. He went out hunting, fishing. He was one of those all around guys. Well, lost him early on. And, I was a little guy at 3.5 years old, and, ended up without a dad. But, one thing I did end up with was his ability to work on cars and an interest in vehicles. Now, in my, thing as a little tyke, one of the things I would do is I love taking things apart. And when I was little, my mother told me, she goes, you were underneath the table and you were taking it apart at a friend's house. I took apart the vacuum cleaner. Now picture it, 5, 6 years old. It's like, she's got appliances apart around the house.
Well, that's exactly what I was fixing to ask, is what is the first item you took apart that was a moment with your mom?
It was a vacuum cleaner.
Ooh.
A Kirby vacuum cleaner, no less.
That's tough.
Yeah. And so I had a passion for cars. I'll never forget, I was a child of the muscle car era. And I used to ride my bike and I'd hop on there. And you know how you talked about riding your bike to the parts store?
Sure.
I'd ride my bike down to DeLacy Dodge. And here it is. It's like 1968, September, when they'd all release the cars the third week. And they'd be these, car haulers rolling in with brand new Chargers. I'm like, this is so cool. Now, it was the second year. It was 1969 model year. And there were some way cool cars. It's like, I really wish I was able to drive the Hemis, the TAs, but I guess that stoked my interest in cars. In school, I was one of your typical non-performers, really non-performer. I like.
Was it just school didn't appeal to you? Were you bored? What do you think that would be?
I think part of that was not having a vision for what the importance of school was.
Okay.
I loved my mom to death, and she would let us go on anything. Homework, she didn't care because, we had a built-in excuse. We lost dad when we were little. She didn't want to make our lives too hard. Unfortunately, that comes back to haunt you years later when your grades are so-so. I shared with you last weekend. I graduated at the top 10% of the bottom 10% of my class. I barely got out by the skin of my teeth.
As I say with that, better to be on the top 10% of the bottom 10% instead of being on the bottom 1% of the last 10%.
This is true. But what was interesting, you ask it was school, did bore me. I loved cars, and I love taking, I'll go back to, I love taking things apart. I love working on things. In ninth grade, I aced senior auto shop. I got exempted from the exam, and I got early releases. I could work at the dealership, and I had my share of jobs in New York.
Okay.
You know, uh, during the era that I grew up in was not one of the plenty. I had 25 different jobs from the time I was in high school till the time I left New York. I mean, everything from a pump jockey, and I did that when I was 14. I was across the street building brakes. I just got intrigued by this guy's 1968 Corvette over there. I went over, and typical kid hanging around. And I was like, hey, can I try that? Again, I was like, got to work with my hands. And, as I talked about how your grades go against you, one of the things when I left school was I wasn't a high performer. And because I wasn't a high performer, my sights didn't shoot that high. I was a dishwasher. I was a pump jockey. I was working in my garage at home. And the downside to that is when you don't think you have an intelligence level to take this next step up, you don't, because no one wants to fail.
No, you're 100% correct. If I think I'm going to fall off the edge, I just don't do it. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And, so before I left New York, one of my last jobs was working at a Napa parts store, of all things.
Okay. I won't hold that against you.
Sorry. Well, but I was the manager of the machine shop.
Oh, okay.
My career had taken me into building race cars and working at a machine shop there. I got hired at, Caesar. We had a, one-armed guy. You were talking about picking parts in your episode. Picture picking parts with one arm. This guy was good at going through the books. Great guy. And he believed in me, and I worked there, and Mar and I decided, you know what, this is kind of a tough economic environment. So we came to Houston, looked around. Jobs aplenty when we were here.
Good.
Went back home, got married, packed up the U-Haul, moved to Houston.
Just that quick.
Yeah. I mean, the job ads were like that thick. Twice the thickness of our regular Buffalo Evening newspaper. And Marlene got a job with an oil company. She was with them for 40 years. Same company.
Wow.
I had a great career with them. And my career changed at that point. I moved from working on cars, and I thought, you know what? I really enjoy the machining industry. An oil field, man, you remember in the 80s, man, we had oil tool companies popping up around here like crazy. Now, I almost feel like it was Groundhog's Day, though, because I went to work, great job, advanced pretty quickly. In a span of a year, I moved from nights to days in 3 months. And then in the next 9 months, it was just great. I was on the production line, making some killer tools and getting tapped for leadership. Then what happens? The bottom falls out.
Happens in the oil field industry.
Yep. And here I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like back in New York all over again. So I got laid off. And you know what I did next? I went to college.
Really?
Yes. So here I was, graduated with a 66 average. I flunked second year algebra. I flunked English. And what were the two classes I took? I took college level English. And at the same time, I took college algebra and trigonometry. I'm like, so here's what was interesting. Going back to what I said, I was in my mind was a non-performer. That all got dispelled when I got my high school transcript, because I needed that in order to get into college. My IQ was higher than average. I'm like, 123 IQ. I'm like, okay, now my perspective changed, because the way my guidance counselors in high school treated me was like, well, you'll just be a mechanic. That was the thought process. You'll just be a mechanic. And what I want people to hear is this. Anytime someone says to you, you'll just be you got to be careful, because you do not want that to put a stamp on you. And one of the good things about me is I have a very high degree of self-assurance. Some people like to call it arrogance. And let me share with you about one time that arrogance came out. So picture, I'm a Yankee. I'm in Texas. I'm blue collar, and I've got this big amount of self-confidence. So I called Jim at Hilo, your former company. I called Jim. He's in the commercial room. I'm like, hey, Jim, business is growing. This is my third year of being in business. And I'm like, Jim, I need you to send me a technician. Really long pause. I'm like, well, are you going to talk or did you not hear me? Next thing Jim goes, I wouldn't send anybody to you. I'm like, what? Why? He goes, you're a jerk. like, wait, of course, I'm looking in the mirror. I don't see myself that way. And I'm like, come on, Jim, tell me what's going on. He goes, you're direct. And he went down the list. You're direct. You act like you know it all. Okay, picture a guy I'm fixing cars. Guys listening to this who fix cars can identify this. We have a high degree that we can fix the problem, or why would people bring their cars to us? The problem is I didn't know how to manage that. And it wasn't for years later that I got that under control. So it was an interesting early journey. Started my shop in my garage, and we moved a year later. But you know what happened after the first year? So here it is. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We're coming up on our first year anniversary. We have 27 cars on the lot. I'm like, it's looking good. I had a technician decide he wanted to work late.
Okay.
On a car with an electrical problem. And I'm at the house, phone rings. And Mark's all panicked. He goes, Vic, you need to get up here. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, the shop's on fire.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, you're kidding. It gutted the shop.
Oh.
Thankfully, and this is where God's grace comes in. Only 2 cars were damaged besides the Fiero it was on jack stands. That thing raged until 2 in the morning. It was 10 to 2. But we were back to work the next day cleaning up. And I didn't have any insurance. So this is recipe for disaster.
Sure.
No money, no insurance. You're out taking a risk. And I'm a high risk individual too. No insurance. And my neighbor walks in and he goes, you got insurance? And I'll never forget. It's icy cold. The water's dripping from the ceiling and it's just nasty inside. And we're by the door and Gary looks down at me because he's a little bit taller than me. He goes, you got insurance? And I go, no. He goes, yeah, you'll be out of business in a couple of weeks. And with that, I slid the door latch over. Inside, I went, watch me. And that was the start of me really pushing to overcome that big hill that was right in front of me. And we did.
So what I just heard was challenge accepted.
Yeah. A challenge, exactly.
Nice.
You throw the gauntlet down, brother. I will show you. And that's, I think sometimes too, if somebody tells you can't do it, that speaks into your life, you can kind of ball up. But if somebody who doesn't speak to your life says you're going to be out of business, that can be a really good encouragement. So again, be careful who you let speak into your life. So Marlene, she took the day off. She helped clean up. We were back in business the next day, and with no power. And picture it's getting to be winter time. It's cold, and we were there for another month until we moved into the new shop. So it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine in those early years, but I'm probably the model of here's all the things that you shouldn't do when you start a business.
You know what? That puts a lot into the book of business, though. It tells you, I've been there, done, one of those, I've been there, done that. And really, you could have closed that book. You could have just said, I'm done. I'm done. And you could have, gone somewhere else, maybe went to work for somebody, maybe got back into the oil field business, and that'd be great for a few years and then dive again, But no, it's that's what I heard, challenge accepted. And I'm not so much prove him wrong, but prove yourself right.
Yeah. And that was it. I had in my mind and in my heart, I had a dream and a vision. And I loved working on cars, and the dream and the vision was to take care of people. We had customers that we had that were in our driveway all the way up until the day I sold the shop. I have a picture of Terry Davis. She had come in. She's a little gal. She wouldn't even be up next to me. She's like 4'8", and we worked on their family's cars from the time I was in my house. And we look at it's like 30 years later, and that was successful, and that was having good also having good people who would believe in you, patronize you, encourage you. They became friends along the way too.
Very good. Very good. Going through all those trials and tribulations it's definitely something to learn from. You can learn from it or turn away. And
Right.
one of the things I remembered is with your shop is you had the woodlands growing up on one side of the highway.
Right.
It was I-45 going right into Houston, and the woodlands was exploding, and all the shops were over there in the woodlands, and the price of dirt over there is just out of control. And instead of taking a left-hand turn, looks like you and Marlene took a right-hand turn.
Yeah.
And you were, I don't know, quarter of a mile down from the intersection. And the one thing that I always remember about your shop is if you're not on the main drag and people aren't looking your way, you've got to come up with a way to change that.
Right.
And I don't know if everybody knows, but you had a sign that I think you stole from Las Vegas, because that thing, I don't know what you paid for that thing, but it caught everybody's attention. And that was, to me, that was how you got some new folks. I mean, they would glance that way, and it would, to me, it'd be more like, what is that down there?
Right.
So that was a real unique way to, market yourself out there. And of course, what happened? That side grew up a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's cool about that is, in your, how you develop relationships with people, and that, customers become friends and they become business advisors. And I had one client, just really interested, just dear lady. And I looked for them for business advice. And I had this opportunity to buy this piece of property. And I said to her, we're going to buy this piece of property over here. What do you think? And she goes, ooh, I don't think I would. I'm like, well, why is that? She goes, there's a biker bar right down the street. And if you went past me, you probably saw that biker bar. And inside, how you follow your heart. And that was the key. I followed my heart, follow the prompting of the Holy Spirit. I was like, you know what? I hate going against their advice, because it gave me a lot of really good ones, but I went in and I planted my flag there. And it took some time for that area to really grow up. But I didn't know where we were headed. But, our Heavenly Father did, because that whole area blew up around me. And, talking about the price of the dirt in the woodlands, well, that's what the value of that property was when we sold the shop.
So share with everybody the diamond in the rough and the chain of events that caused you to switch from being a shop owner to becoming a shop coach. What was the number one component? What was that phone call that caught your attention?
Oh, what's funny is actually when you called me, you didn't prompt me to be a coach, but you called me and you're like, want you to be a part of CCPN? I'm like, what's that? I have no idea, but you'd be a good fit. And I'm like, I believed in you. I'm like, okay. And that was the start, because what happened was you helped me to get outside of my four walls and then exposed to different areas of the industry, manufacturers, WDs. And then what happened was I started to realize this guy's got to change a little. So this rough as a cob, horrible people skills and communication skills, man. I think my communication skills, if they could get any worse, they'd be on the bottom of the scale.
And you say that, and maybe you even beat yourself up a little bit. Jimmy definitely did. He beat you up. Of course, Jimmy, and some of the folks that are going to end up seeing this podcast are going to know who Jimmy is. And
Right.
Jimmy was straightforward in a Texan kind of way. And that's the big difference is you came from the East Coast. And what's the best way to put this? When you're a fresh transplant from the East Coast, or we go up to the East Coast those East Coast people scare us a little bit, because you're right. We're not used to the very direct and bluntness, but you know, taking that and being able to recognize that's not easy to change. H-
No.
how did you I guess come to fruition to say maybe I'm a little bit straightforward, because it
Mhm.
wasn't, I wouldn't call it aggressive. It's just East Coast. And how do you
Yeah.
make that transition? What did you do to I guess soften your approach a little bit?
Okay, that is a great question. So in 1996, our church got started, and so this is it's going to kind of seem like, okay, where are we going with the church? Well, 1996, our church got started, and I got back into church, and a really good friend of mine who's now he's a mentor, he's a friend, he's my pastor, but he's family, and he actually helped me transition. And what I mean by that is, I went to work part time at the church as a volunteer, half his days. Well, my gruff East Coast ways didn't quite gel. Picture, okay, here we are in the South. Now picture we're in the South and we're working with a church team. And he sat me down one day and he goes, "You need to develop a little bit of foam." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "It's okay to let people down to the hard surface, but you got to bring them down slowly." And I'm like, "Okay, how do you do that?" And I had tears in my eyes when I talked to Alan. And I said, "I would love to be able to communicate with people the way you are." And Alan Clayton helped me to develop my leadership skills and communication skills. And two books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Becoming a Person of Influence. Those two books helped me to have this mirror that said, okay, you got some warts, but then help me to have the tools to smooth them out, to practice, to lead and guide. And so it was getting outside the shop and having someone who would help me with a set of skills I didn't have. He drew out those talents. And you kind of, where you asked initially about how did I become a coach, that's part of it. People helped me to see things I had inside of me. And it took people pulling them out, because a lot of times we have capabilities inside us that we don't see, but other people do. And a lot of times it's, the math skills I talked about. I flunked high school algebra. By the time I went through college, I had gotten a 100 on a calculus 3
Geez, that's
exam.
fantastic.
So, I got out of my way and I started to learn. And I was able to apply math lessons, people skill lessons, leadership lessons, all the things that you need as a shop owner, all the things you need to be able to do as a coach. A key thing, a really key thing, you've got to be a good listener. Picture somebody like Alan had told me, you got to develop some phone. I'm like, hey, whatever, and walked away. No, I had to listen with an intending ear that this person wants to speak into my life and help me see something that I don't. And then help me have the tools and polish. And, I look back on that time, while it wasn't easy changing, it was very doable. And it took time. It took time. So how did I become a coach? Well, sold the shop.
That's kind of the phone call I thought we were going to talk about there for a minute, because you shared with me, and I can't remember if that was one or multiple phone calls, but sure, let us give us a little understanding of the dirt that you turned to, that your friends and neighbors said, "Nah, I don't know if you should be down there by that biker bar." So how did that dirt turn into gold?
It turned into gold by following your heart, listening to, the word, and listening to the wisdom that God puts on you, and having patience and faith. The, I had great customers, but the area grew up, and I'll tell you how it turned into gold was in 2000. I saw a map of the future plans for the area, and I saw a road going in just on the other side of my neighbor's lot that was adjacent to my, like, oh man, like, I got to get that lot. I had patience. And over the next 3, 4 years, I keep tapping him, like, hey, Ron, you need to sell me that dirt. I knew it was coming. And finally, one day the phone rang. It's like, hey, Vic, you want to buy that piece of property? I'm like, absolutely.
Yep.
And that was 2009. 5 years after that is when I got this letter in the mail. It's like, we really want your property. We really want your property. I'm like, okay, let's talk. And, it's interesting too, is I had run my course in the business and I knew I was ready to do something else. I don't think this is, what I'm saying is for everybody, because sometimes there's more in there, but I had gotten discontented. I had, I'd grown my people, I'd grown my customer base, but I just wanted something more. Well, then that came along. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And of course, I sold the shop, 2 years later, rolled out of it. And what did I do? I went to Apex and you ran into me.
Okay.
And what'd you say? You're like, what are you going to do? And and I'm like, well, I want to stay in the business. You're like, I can't get rid of you, can't I? And I remember saying to you, I want to stay in the business because I love the business. I love the people. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I know it's going to be a lot of work. And I don't have to work. I'm doing it because I want to. And I think what happened was I went to work. I found the company that I was a client of in their 20 group. I was there for 14 years. And after I sold the shop, of course, I got out of the 20 group. And they were like, hey, why don't you come work for us? And so then I developed my speaking skills. I developed my ability to present. I was teaching college at the same time. So you kind of see this, I went to be from being the back road kid who was an annoyance to the teacher. Now I'm the teacher. And so over the next couple of years, found I really enjoyed it. And in 2019, here it is, November 2019, we decided to launch Shop Owner Coach. 4 months before the world shuts down.
Oof. Yep. Tough.
And that was, I think, looking back, it was great because it allowed us to grow slower. Now I have to worry about travel. And I find I'm still learning and picking up things every day. If you have your ears open to learn, and you know this, there's always something you can learn. What'd you say to me about the ingots the other day and ball bearings?
Yep. Talked about that. And again, thought I was going to learn one component, end up learning something different. And I still have that question out there that one day is going to get answered. But, you're going to be exposed sometimes to things you're just not, you just never had on your plate.
Right. Right. So as a coach, here's some things I've learned. I've learned that the day I started my shop, I was a great mechanic. The day I started my shop, I was a horrible business owner. And what I mean by that is HR, marketing, finance. These are things that, we weren't equipped to utilize when we were fixing cars. The challenge was my confidence. My confidence was my kryptonite, because my confidence to fix problems in the shop, in the day-to-day basis of working on cars, got in my way. There's a business problem. Well, I'll figure it out. Unfortunately, that went for 15 years until I realized I need help. Mm-hmm. And every shop owner who hasn't experienced working in a business and how it runs needs to have somebody working alongside them to help them see the hidden talents, to add the value to them. And I don't care what coach they get or what consulting company they get. They should get somebody. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. And okay. I know. Oh, well, you're not a Texas fan. You're a Cowboys fan, aren't you? So when's the last time?
It's not about me today. This is all about you.
I know, but you're going to go, okay. So when's the last time you guys went to the playoffs?
Don't derail this conversation.
Well, okay. And where I'm headed with this is New England fans know how bad we were. And why were we bad? Because Tom Brady. Tom Brady, as much as I hate to say it, the best quarterback that this 2 decades has ever known. What's fascinating about Tom Brady, until he retired, he had a quarterback's coach. Why did Tom Brady, the best quarterback in the NFL, need a quarterback's coach? He may not be looking for, 5 yards. He might be looking for a half a yard, looking for just to get a little bit better. And as shop owners, even distributors, having somebody that can look into an organization and see something that can help that organization grow, you do a disservice by getting in the way of that person. Is it worth it? Heck yeah. We've got some wonderful success stories in our organization. In the organization that I was a client of, I've seen shop owners go from a $500,000 a year in sales to now running 10 single store operations that all produce in excess of $1.5 million a year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And how? They got out of their way.
So you touched on something, and I'm starting to see how this whole environment works out. Having the desire to work on vehicles yourself when you're real young, tinker, then get to the vehicles and work on them, to managing a location, to now wanting to help others. Because is it fair to say that a lot of the independent service centers did transition from technician to shop owner? If that person was a technician in an independent and they didn't have what I would call maybe the strongest background, or maybe it was foundation is the right word I want to talk about. How many service centers owners, have had experience and exposure with HR and HR related issues, and what would solve a lot of those issues before they even came up? In other words, how to keep from those happening.
Right.
Is it fair to say that some shops have to, from time to time, deal with loss prevention issues?
It's huge.
Oh my gosh! And what does that not only do for the balance sheet, but what does that do for morale in the shop? And to be able to take items like that and be able to share those items and develop scenarios, and maybe it's nothing more than some basic policies
Right.
that kind of put everything out there in the open. I mean, do most people, Vic, prefer structure, or really no lines, no structure or anything like that? What do most people prefer?
I think, and I think because they don't know structure, they prefer no structure.
Okay.
You can SOP a business into lack of growth. So, since it's a very fine line. I'll use your example of loss prevention as an example. I can speak to it firsthand. Loss prevention is brutal. And getting, loss. We had one person, they clipped us for 35, another for 40,000.
Huh.
You and I know a guy who did it to us and someone else. And you're right, it does hammer morale. And as I coach shops, and as we're coaching them and we're looking into their numbers. We're looking at things that they usually don't have time to do. I'll use one client as an example. When he first came on, I had asked him a series of questions, and it turns out his bookkeeper, his service advisor, and the person making the deposits were all the same person.
Okay.
Okay, so that as I begin to dig into the finances, I had to build a relationship where he trusts me first. And then I began to enlighten him, and I said, let's take a look at where this money, where did this go? Did this get deposited? As he began to dig, he answered his own question. It turns out this person got $100,000 from him, and almost put him out of business. And here's one of the challenges: is most service center owners are good people. It's just like people in the parts business, UDs, sales reps, great people. Just, I think this aftermarket is one of the best industries for people. And the challenge with shop owners is they want to be trusted. So what do? We trust others. And my mentor, Alan Clayton, I went to him one day and I'm like, I showed him what was going on. He's like, he goes, you need to distrust people just a little. Now here it is, a pastor He goes, you have to put things in place to prevent people from doing things. I'm like, okay, that's a good point. And so we began to establish boundaries, criteria. One person made the deposit, another person did the books. We had a bookkeeper that, that checked out. So after that last big loss, we didn't experience anymore. There might have been oil and stuff like that, but we're done.
So you learned from and you developed some structure.
Yes.
And everybody knew how that structure worked.
Right.
And where the line was.
Yes.
Perfect.
And if the line got crossed, there was no mercy. If you steal from someone, it speaks to who your heart is. And we made it very clear, if there is theft, there will be termination because you've chosen you over the other. And I unfortunately one got caught, one got fired. And I asked him the question. He was a young guy. I put through college. And I said, why? He goes, I really wanted to impress my father-in-law and not be borrowing money. And I'm like, you did it for the wrong reasons. If you'd have come to me, we could have given you more work. There's all kinds of ways to get through this. A structure in any form, it can be whether it's be loss prevention, it could be how do you inspect a vehicle? How do you keep a customer's car from getting lifted off the lot? You don't stick the keys on top of the tire. You put in place a lockbox on. But there's there's a lot of things that can be structured, and that's one of the things I learned as being in the organization, the 20 group that I was a part of, was a lot of structure, and it was helpful. It was really helpful.
Very good. Very good. Hey, I want to ask, I guess, a question. I want to go back in time quite a bit. I kind of missed my opportunity a little bit earlier, but I'm just very curious and interested. It's always something that somebody always knows and remembers. What was the first car that you drove?
My first car that I drove, well, the first car that I drove was not a car.
Okay.
It was a tractor.
Okay, there you go.
I learned how to drive in Welland, Ontario. My uncle lived on a 2-acre farm, and he had his Ford Fan, I think is what it was. And I'm driving it. I got pictures of me driving that thing. And I sat on his lap. So that was the first car I drove. The first car that I drove in a pedestrian area was a 1966 Belvedere.
Oh,
three on the tree with a slant 6.
Yeah, you might have to describe what 3 on the tree is for us younger chaps that might be out there.
Well, you shift on the steering column.
Okay.
None of this floor shifter jazz, and it wasn't automatic. But I mean, man, it was so easy. I'd drive it around the American Legion parking lot, and and then after I got my driver's license, that's what I did my driving test on. Mm-hmm. I took my driving test 3 times, flunked it twice. I like to push the rules, okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would have almost forced us to ask for your young man's card back then. There's one thing you don't do is you don't flunk your driver's test when you're a young man. You want to drive and you want to get it done.
Well, I know I still drove.
Yeah, I don't want to hear any more of this story.
You asked.
So what's the first car you owned?
First car I owned was a 1967 Belvedere.
Okay.
So it was my stepdad's car. I bought it from my mom. And so then the next car after that, though, was a more interesting one. It was my 1969 Firebird I got from my brother-in-law.
Ooh, okay.
2-barrel, 350, 4-speed. It was car Marlene and I dated in. So I had my 69 Firebird. I had a 70 Nova SS. I had a 69 Camaro. Now, the one car I wish that hadn't gotten away was my 1969 Rally Sport Super Sport Camaro with a 396, and it was a legit 396. When we were getting married, Jetta said everything, and that was one of them. And I sold that. Wow, I sold that for a whopping $600.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, I know.
That is very, very tough. Well, good deal. If there is, throughout your entire career, if there's one lesson you could share with everybody, with every person you'd met, what would that one scenario, that one lesson be that really impacted you?
The one lesson is to take somebody with you. And let me illustrate this point. So Marley and I went to Jamaica, young, early in our marriage. Picture you, it's the time, we all had brand new 35 millimeters, and we were going to one falls there called Dunn's River Falls.
Okay.
And we were part of a group, but we were going to climb the falls together. And it's like a 300-foot falls, and it's easily manageable. Well, picture you got these, typical macho guys, we're all standing there. We got the camera, and, we're all like, okay, let's go. And the Jamaican guy walks up. He goes, okay, man, give me your cameras. We're like, oh, heck no. We're like, And he's like, you give me your cameras. He won't make it in the water. I'm like, okay. And we're all like giving him our camera. And this guy's got like 20 cameras around his neck. This is what was beautiful. He said to all of us, he said, I want all of you to do this. He said, I want you to take the person, it was guy, girl. We were all taking their hand. He said, I'm going to tell the person behind me where to step. They're going to tell the person where to step. And he goes, if you do this the entire way down, as you're making your way up the falls, every one of you will not get wet unless you want to. And sure enough, it was like, picture this, girl's got the Jamaican dude's hand. She's got the guy's hand behind. He's like, okay, take a step here. And she's like, take a step there. And everybody did that the whole way. It didn't lose anything because we were moving along the way. And I learned something by, a trusted guide. Put your hand in his hand. Somebody behind you who hasn't taken that journey yet, put your hand in theirs, tell them what to do. And through life, we have people who have taken us places. And it's our duty to take people with us along the way. I want people to go, you know what? I have something of value that I can help that next person to not step in the pothole I did, to not make the same mistakes I did. Not to give them a life lesson. Just, hey, you want to save yourself some pain? Mm-hmm. You want to make a little more money? You want to, whatever the benefit is. You like the Jamaican guy. You want to not get wet? Do what I tell you. The journey is much more fulfilling when you take somebody with you, and the world is a much better place when they're taking somebody with right behind you. What'll happen is you'll help generations behind you to plant trees and shade that you will never get to experience. That's the most fulfilling thing.
Because that was awesome to share, because it's not just somebody sharing something with you that you can learn. It's you being able to pass that on. And it may not even be the same item, right, what I just heard, but it's being able to, pass that on, because everybody is in need of learning. But to do something like that was out of the box. Climbing a cliff is out of the box. And so that is probably something that was heavy on everybody's mind at the moment. So I can understand why the attention span was there, but to put that in regular life and to be able to share, again, that's just a testament as to one of the reasons why you made the transition.
Right.
From a shop to a coach. And then you didn't just jump into coaching. You went and worked with a coaching division for a period of time. You went and worked, there's some other things that folks don't know about. You went and worked with a audio company, and that opened up a ton of doors for you as well that you're using today in your coaching program. So that is fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. So I wanted to really thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
And thank everybody for the opportunity for us to have our Driven to Success podcast out there. And you will definitely see more to come in the near future. We have got a long and distinguished list of guests. It is just every time I look at that list, I just get more and more excited about the future episodes that are out there, and that we're covering quite a few different components within the automotive aftermarket industry. And so with that being said, we appreciate everybody's support out there. We thank you for your time, and we are signing off. This is Vic Tarasik, David Wofford with Driven to Success. Thank you.
Thanks, David.